a lot about the vertical jumps today. We learned a lot about the pole vault. The pole vault is probably one of those events we'd want to see more Jamaicans taking part in. So we hope you learned something new today. We hope you broadened your mind, and we hope you will continue to research and study more and more about track and field. So that's physical education class for today. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Come July, your NHT home improvement loan will increase to $3.5 million for qualifying applicants. Your government is caring for you. Since 2016, 156,000 more Jamaicans are working. This is more than any other time in our history. Your government is caring for you.
Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Farm fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, fully net. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make we fry it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
What is the role of a backbencher in government? I'm glad you asked. They're members of parliament who are not appointed to cabinet. So they sit in the back of the legislature and they apply pressure. They examine what government legislates, participate in parliament debates, raise issues and advocate and question chamber when things don't look straight. Backbenchers represent the constituents in parliament. Backbenchers oversee the interests of citizens, you and me. But how can they be agents of government accountability after them no hold a portfolio? And them and a minister? No. So then how can they facilitate government transparency? And the next thing, them on a front bencher. So how them affect me? You see, a lot of work is in committees. So these portfolio-free MPs with less dire responsibilities are more accessible to you and me. So they help with policy, but it helps if we engage them, you see. So they're not just in the back benches, but on the ground, in the trenches. Though in the back of parliament, we're at the front of their cause. So pause. Find your backbencher at jampja.org.
Since 2016, 156,000 more Jamaicans are working. This is more than any other time in our history. Your government is caring for you. Come July, your NHT home improvement loan will increase to $3.5 million for qualifying applicants. Your government is caring for you.
Zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table on the side or the back. If you check out the servings, just do the maths. Not taking too much, finger below the facts. Zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table on the side or the back. Take note of the sodium, the sugars and the fats. 5% and less in the on the right track. You for zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table on the side or the back. Vitamins, minerals and vitamin 2, 20% and more that good for you. You for zoom in. Check the nutrition facts. You for zoom in. Check the nutrition facts. You for zoom in. Check the nutrition facts. Less sugar, less salt intake and less fat. You for zoom in.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Jamaica Moves, the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, the National Health Fund, and Japan.
Me, I go show them my way of justice.
I'm abused.
I need legal advice. I don't deserve this.
The truth of the matter is, justice there for all of it. The Ministry of Justice has trained more than 5,600 persons in restorative justice practices. More than 200,000 victims have been supported by the victim services. Legal aid has reached thousands island-wide. Make we talk it out, not fight it out. Call 888 Justice today.
Are you an entrepreneur producing an excellent Jamaican product or service? Did you know you can earn hard currency and more significant returns by exporting? Contact the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce to help propel your business along the export lane.
Everything you can produce, the Jamaicans overseas want it. We're not going to get rich by just bringing down the debt. We're going to get rich by exporting a lot more. So grow exports, create job opportunities, drive economic growth through exports to make Jamaica a richer and much more prosperous country.
Apply to the Heart NSTA Trust. Learn a new skill and expand your horizons. Your government has made it complete difference to you.
Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Farm fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, fully net. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make we fry it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
Do your part to prevent mosquito breeding. Mosquitoes will breed in any container that holds water.
Tightly cover water storage containers such as drums, barrels, buckets and tanks. If this cannot be done, pour cooking oil on the water surface. Punch holes in all tins, plastics and beverage boxes to prevent the collection of water before disposal. Cover all tires or fill with dirt to prevent water collection. Scrub all vases once per week to remove mosquito eggs. Use mosquito repellents to protect yourself from mosquito bites. Dispose of garbage properly by placing in plastic bags and securing properly to prevent water collection.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Na, 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 na. We want a peace for Jamaica. Yeah, yeah. We have to be our brother's keeper. Yeah, yeah. Jamaica live good, yeah. I make we enjoy life. Want we feel safe at night. Jamaica live good. I better you and I. No say we future bright. Jamaica live good. Come together as one. I make the violence the world.
BGLC, the regulatory body. We regulate, you play without worry. We regulate, you play. BGLC, fair play when you play. For the fun of the game, you know where they are. BGLC, keep it fair for the player. You play the game and we are the rules that keep everything fair so the game play better. The Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission. We ensure fairness, integrity and responsible gaming practices. Keep the game fair and fun for everyone. We regulate, you play.
I'm not allowed to speak for myself. They make all the decisions. I'm not allowed to go anywhere by myself. They're afraid I'll escape. See you, Mahana.
Update on Tuesday, but we did not get to do the water update and the update on our roads, and so we're going to be focused on that today in addition to the ODPEM update. With us today we have the Honorable Darrell Vaz, our Minister of Energy, Telecoms and Transportation. He's here as co-chair also of the Cabinet Subcommittee that's responsible for the relief effort. I know Onway is his co-chair, the Honorable Desmond McKenzie, who is our Minister of Local Government and Community Development. We have our new head of ODPEM, who's going to be the first person up, Commander Gale. It's good to have you. And of course, the person responsible for water in Jamaica, and much more than that, the Honorable Matthew Samuda, our Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change, who will give you a very, very substantive update on what's happening with water. And so this morning we're going to move more quickly than usual because we do have to get to Cabinet for 10 a.m. And so first up today will be Commander Gale giving you the update on ODPEM.
Good morning, Jamaica ministers, colleagues in the room. By way of impact assessment, as of November 12, Hurricane Melissa remains widespread and deeply felt across our island. We have confirmed some 45 fatalities. 9 cases are still under investigation. 13 persons have been reported missing. Our thoughts remain with their families through this difficult time. The agricultural sector has sustained some severe losses, including damage to crops, livestock, poultry, and the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries continues to align interventions to support recovery and food security options. Through combined efforts of the ODPEM and our partner agencies, more than 90,000 care packages have been issued and over 570,000 hot meals distributed to affected communities. The JDF is now maintaining 2 national Melissa relief warehouses for the ODPEM, with parish operational hubs in St. Elizabeth, Clarendon, Kingston, St. James. Other hubs will be set up in Trelawney, Westmoreland, and Hanover over the next 48 hours. The JDF also maintains some 22 disaster relief outposts and has completed some 207 flights to sustain air and ground logistics during the continued operations. Today, some 22 communities across St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, and Trelawney will be serviced. With an 88% rate of confidence, recent geospatial and radar-based analytics indicate an upward trend in the number of confirmed structures impacted as the assessment moves eastward. To date, approximately 960,000 buildings have been assessed. Of this total, some 191,000 buildings, or about 20% of those assessed, have sustained damage ranging from minor to severe. Within the subset, 146,000 structures, represent some 15% of those assessed, have experienced major to severe structural damage. These include cases of extensive or roof or wall loss, and in some instances, total collapse. In the parishes of Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, St. James, and Hanover, they continue to record the highest concentrations of damage, consistent with the storm's trajectory and the wind field data recorded during landfall. It is estimated that some 90,000 households and some 360 persons were directly impacted in these reports. The preliminary spatial data map shows dense clusters of destruction along the coastal and low-lying areas, particularly those in the agricultural and residential zones, where flooding and storm surges have compounded wind-related impacts. Structural damage patterns also suggest significant variation between parishes, with western parishes generally facing the brunt of the effects. The findings from the assessments are now being used to inform the national framework for recovery, including the prioritization of shelter, targeted material support, and the establishment of safe housing zones. Further validation exercises are currently ongoing to refine these figures as field teams extend their coverage into central and eastern parishes over the coming weeks. The National Works Agency has reopened most of our major roadways, with clearance efforts continuing in the most affected parishes. 229 roadways are currently restricted to single-lane access only, with some 33 roads remaining blocked. The JPS has now restored power to approximately 64% of its customer base, while the National Water Commission has restored supplies to in excess of 70% of its customers. Our telecom providers have been able to restore close to 60% of their network. The Ministry of Labour and Social Security continues to coordinate the shelter management and social support, while the Ministry of Health and Wellness has expanded emergency care through mobile clinics, field hospitals, mobile pharmacy care clinics. The Fire Brigade remains active in water distribution to hospitals and shelters and search and rescue operations on land where necessary. On the matter of donation and financial contributions, the national recovery effort continues to be strengthened by the extraordinary generosity of individuals, organizations, and partners both here and abroad. To date, over some 15,000 donors have contributed a total amount of over 540 million Jamaican dollars to the government's official disaster relief platform. These donations reflect the deep compassion and unity of the Jamaican people, the private sector, the diaspora, and the international donor community. Our church and faith-based groups continue to play an invaluable role in the recovery efforts as they have undertaken large-scale distribution of food, clothing, and care packages across multiple parishes, ensuring helps reach those in the most vulnerable communities. In closing, the scale of Hurricane Melissa devastation has tested our resilience, but has also revealed our unity, compassion, and strength. I want to thank the Jamaican people, particularly those in the most affected areas, for their patience, understanding, as the ODPEM continues to coordinate the national relief efforts through all ministries, departments, agencies, and our partners. We recognize the challenges in many communities are facing, and we assure you that every arm of government, alongside our local and international partners, are working tirelessly to get the assistance to those most needed. Your cooperation and calm during this difficult time will strengthen our ability to respond effectively together. Thank you, and God bless Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Commander. And already I have a lot of questions for you from the media. So once we have all the presentations and updates, we will have the questions posed. All right, up next, we are going to have the Honorable Matthew Samuda, who is the Minister of Water, Environment, and Climate Change. Minister, is it okay for me to tell Jamaica something about you? All right, and I think it was something that was so admirable. As many know, COP is happening, which is the big meeting of all of the environmental groups around the world, looking at how, as a global community, we can address climate change. Minister Samuda is a very important figure, and Jamaica plays a very important role in those conversations, and Hurricane Melissa shows the importance of our advocacy on climate change, and he was to be there, and he said he would only go if he got water restored to a particular percentage. And when he didn't see it at that percentage, which was a high percentage that he had set for himself, he said he was not going. And I have to say, Minister, I really admire that. I admire your commitment. This is the kind of thing that you want to see. You know, you have your targets, and if you don't hit your target, then you just have to double down on some of the things that are important but nice to do is you just cannot do them. And so, Minister, I thank you for showing that kind of leadership throughout this hurricane recovery period. Over to you now.
Thank you, Minister. I do hope that we will be at that point tomorrow, allowing me to attend on Saturday. I want me to greet colleague ministers Vaz and Mackenzie, Commander Gale, heads of agencies, permanent secretaries, members of the media, and Jamaicans who may be watching or listening at home. The impact to the National Water Commission's operations of Hurricane Melissa is indeed extensive. The disruptions, damage, indeed lost revenue, reduced collections, and cost of relief and restoration will exceed 10 billion Jamaican dollars. The Cabinet has been apprised of all of the issues that affect the Water Commission and has been presented with a restoration and relief plan. That plan includes clearing access to sites, temporary repairs to raw water transmission and distribution pipelines, installation of standpipes in communities without electric power where the water treatment plants in the area have power, trucking of water, both through the Water Commission's own trucks and through members of Parliament and indeed the municipalities, office building repairs, purchase and rental of standby generators. This first phase of our restoration plan will cost 3.25 billion Jamaican dollars. And specifically, for your information, as I mentioned, clearing of access sites, temporary raw water pipelines, as in the case of Great River, as you would see on the side of the road where we've had to retrofit a system, repair of major transmission mains, as in Lilliput, and in sections of St. Elizabeth where we would have had land slippage, which would have broken pipes, repairs of distribution mains, equipping secondary production centers with standby generators, trucking of water into communities with no supply, and very important, repairs to office buildings in the most affected parishes, which would have seen particular impact, as well as procurement, emergency procurement of all water trucks that are available in Ireland to increase our capacity to respond. Now, over the coming 4 to 6 months, items that cannot be procured or should not be procured in an emergency way will see the benefit of a $6.95 billion restoration plan, which will have layers of resilience to ensure that as we build back particularly stronger. We've also identified 4 large generators at some of our plants that have not performed as per expectation, and we'll be replacing those over the 4 to 6 months to harden our infrastructure going forward. Now that's a general overview of the plan. I'm going to go into some particular elements and firstly share where we are. As at this morning, we are at 76% of customers being restored. Now that is indeed an important distinction. I'm not sure if someone else is shifting the presentation. That is an important distinction. We have showcased on the screen here the particular number of systems which have been disrupted. 496 systems remain disrupted. 267 systems are now active, a doubling of the number of systems which are active since our last update last week, Minister. So a total of 763 systems. Now, 763 systems may also have multiple pumping systems as subsystems, as you have lift stations to go into hilly communities. But it is correct to say that 76% of our customers have been restored. The next slide, which is particularly important, is indeed the total number of customers which have been restored and the number of customers which have not been restored. 130,000 customers remain unrestored this morning. Now, these are customers of the NWC. It's important that distinction is also made because the NWC supplies 78% of households in Jamaica. The next 12%, give or take, is supplied by small municipal systems, which also have their own electricity challenges, and a suite of small private systems that exist virtually in every parish, and I think that also needs to be understood. So of the 78% of households, 76% of those households, customers, businesses, 76% of those persons have restored water. Now, as a general rule, and as you look at the map which follows, for general understanding, it is the plains around the coast which have been restored, because many of those systems allow for distribution through gravity-fed distribution systems. Right, the plains. If you live in an elevated area, still awaiting power, it is unlikely that you would have water at this stage. Now, we have deployed over 45 rented generators thus far, in addition to the 30 plus that the NWC used to operate its treatment plants and indeed some of its larger distribution systems, right? But as we did mention, there are 760 plus systems, which in many cases, many of them are very small, and they do not have generators. The other issue, and we had given these numbers before, this is consistent with the numbers we had presented in terms of what the society should expect. There are very few other generators left to be rented by the Water Commission that currently exist in Jamaica. We use triple phase power, and I think that on the subject of generators, as we move to our relationship with JPS, needs to be understood. The supply of water is inextricably linked to the supply of JPS. Consumers, households, and businesses should expect the restoration of water, if they are a part of the 130,000 cohort, without approximately 12 to 36 hours after JPS reconnects triple phase power in communities. Say it again so that it is widely understood, even within the Parliament and elsewhere. The supply of water is inextricably linked to the supply of power. And three-phase or triple-phase power is what we refer to. Meaning if a community gets back light, which we are happy for those communities, but the pump doesn't get three-phase power, then we're unable to energize that pump. Okay? This is something we learned and explained at great detail post-burial. This is something we learned and have been explaining since the passage of Hurricane Melissa. Now, we expect with our work with JPS, and indeed now as we continue to bring systems on, as we start to shuffle generators, we expect over the next 3 days to get to 85% of our customer base. It's important to note that through careful collaboration and partnership with JPS, we have brought on major systems like the Greater Mandeville water system. So places like Gutters and the Pepper Wells are indeed energized and pumping. Places like White House, the plains of White House, do have water. The plains of Savlamar do have water. The plains of Black River now have water, which is something I'm happy to report, as we have energized through generator the supply from the Darling Toba well. The two major systems which continue to be impacted are actually on the north coast. The wells in Brownstown continue to wait on power. We have completed clearing of access to the production facilities at Minard. Now this is a particularly important one. It supplies over 30,000 customers. So that would affect everything from Brownstown to Runaway Bay, going west into Discover Bay. It is an energy issue that is affecting that. The second one to be understood is indeed the production from the Martha Brae system. The Martha Brae system affects everything from the western boundary of St. Anne to central St. James, being the terminal reservoir, which also affects places like Cornwall Regional. That plant is operating at approximately 50% because it is not yet energized by JPS. It is a backup generator that we are running, which means as you backfill the lines, you will have challenges in and around that area. Whereas we have completed the repairs to the Lilliput distribution line, all of those areas on the coast, Lilliput, Barretall, going west, now have water, certainly on the flat. We are looking to move some of the generators that would have been on systems which have now been powered up, certainly through St. Catherine and Clarendon, into the west over the course of this weekend, which will also increase the distribution footprint of the Water Commission. The following weeks will be marked with significant increases to trucking. The Prime Minister would have announced the allocations given to members of Parliament to allow them to do their own emergency response. We'll be making a similar allocation based on Cabinet's approval to the municipal authorities so that they can engage also for their small systems.
I know Minister Green made an announcement on Tuesday related to trucking for farmers through the NIC and the RADA offices. And this will be bolstered by an additional 12 trucks, which NWC expect to take possession of very early next week. This will allow us to increase our footprint of distribution where we expect no power to be restored in the short term. The second issue is that the government is actively procuring 30 additional standby generators, which, based on our assessment and based on discussions with JPS, will help communities which have the longest wait to come. That's important to understand. And the third element is that the government is and has put out a call to all tank producing companies that we're aware of in Jamaica. There are 4 manufacturers who produce tanks in Jamaica. We have asked them for their total assessment of free capacity, meaning how many tanks can you produce. We will be procuring all of what they're able to produce by December 31st for distribution in the most affected parishes, meaning central to western Jamaica, to assist with households which have been damaged and have no access to water. So at least when the trucking comes, they have appropriate storage. That's amongst some of our solutions that we've put in place. We are in a better place today than we were 3 days ago, and we expect to be in a better place in 3 days than we are today. We expect to hit 85% in that 3-day mark. The last 15% will be particularly challenging. The last 15% is not achievable without close partnership with JPS. That number will only shrink as those pumps are energized. That reflects where the MPs, the parish councils, and indeed NWC will have to expand its trucking footprint. Not easy to be in the 15%, but I do need people to understand the particular issues that we face. So I hope that is understood now. Beyond that, I've had a flurry of questions related to rising groundwater levels in Content, Manchester. So I had asked Mr. Peter Clark, I'm not sure if he's Superman or how he was able to get here as quickly as he has. Peter Clark is the head of the Water Resources Authority. He is present with us here. Peter, can I just ask you to briefly come and explain what is happening in Content, Manchester and its environs?
Good morning, Minister. Thanks for making sure that I'm here, sir. I had to be when I got that call immediately. Good morning to all our viewers and listeners. With regard to Content, Manchester, and there are some other names that are around. Some people may know it as Kirkvine, and some people may know it as South Kendall. We're speaking about the same area. What is happening there is that in one sentence, groundwater has been rising. Why is groundwater rising? Now, that is the scientific question. What is happening is that there's an aquifer. Water is flowing underneath the whole of those lands and those properties. But it is not the normal aquifer that a lot of you are accustomed to, which is a sand, earth kind of aquifer. It is more limestone. So because of the limestone, there are a number of conduits and caves and caverns that are underground. So the groundwater has been flowing into the area. What is happening also is that groundwater advances very slowly. It doesn't advance forward underground as fast as a river flows above ground. So because it advances slower, and we had a lot of rain through Melissa, a lot of rain before Melissa, it means that our aquifer, in simple terms, filled up. And since it can't go forward as much, it has been rising instead. Now, in this area, there are sinkholes, and normally these sinkholes pull the water away, drain the water away from the low-lying areas. But in this instance, because the aquifer has so much water, which is under so much pressure, it's pushing water up the sinkholes. So the sinkholes are having a reversed effect, and that is where the water actually, most of the water is being sourced from that is coming into the Content area. This was recognized over a period of a little bit more than a month from prior to Melissa. We'd been monitoring, and underground, the water has risen roughly 300 feet. from the normal level that the aquifer was at. It has risen roughly 300 feet. A little bit more now, because now it has also popped out and is coming up out of the ground in these areas. We have installed monitoring gauges in that area, and over time, we had been seeing for the last 2 weeks essentially a groundwater rise above surface of 1 foot per day, which is a very high rate of flow of rise for this area. And just of late, in the last 24 to 36 hours, we've been noticing a little bit of a fluctuation where it slowed down a bit, sped up a bit. So we're hoping, and I can only say that we're hoping at this stage that the groundwater is balancing out, and then eventually will start receding. Is this the first time that this is happening there? No, it isn't, actually. We had a major flood in that area in 2002, and we also had a very serious flood there in 1977, when, as a matter of fact, unfortunately, 2 lives were lost in that instance. In this instance, a lot of care has been taken by the powers that be. I understand that the Member of Parliament, the councillors, everybody had jumped up and got mobilized, all of the people that were in that area, and it is my understanding that a lot of what was happening there, a lot of the property has been salvaged, saved, and been put away for preservation, so that the people would not have lost that. So the question is, when is it going to recede? When is it going to really start receding? That is something that we can't say immediately. However, the other question is, how fast will it take to go down once it starts receding? Well, that is once it starts receding, our gauges are there. We can monitor those gauges, and then we can now give an estimate of how long it will take to recede. The last time, June 2002, in early June, the flood started, and the end of June, it had basically receded. So in that instance, once it started receding, it took about 3 weeks. We will see what is happening here in this case. And that is the situation, essentially, for Content Manchester. There are other areas, Minister. I don't know if you want anything to say. Okay, so we are monitoring other areas, of course. We are monitoring the Newmarket area, which is traditionally known for flooding. We're monitoring Chigwell, again, that has flooded out in the past a number of times. We're monitoring Monique in St. Anne. In Cambridge, in St. James, there is some amount of flooding there, and that is because the river, the Sevens River, has broken its banks, and it is not groundwater in this case. It is now the river that has basically diverted in through the community, similar to what has happened with Cave River and also Brighton outside of Santa Cruz. These places have been terribly devastated, and in all instances, it's not groundwater rising. In some instances, it is rivers that have broken their banks, and in some instances, it is just a phenomenal amount of rainfall that flowed down into these depression areas. But once the communities are built out in the areas that are low-lying, it is anticipated, unfortunately, that if groundwater rises or if there's a lot of surface water running in, that there will be some amount of flooding, which is exactly why our friends at the Met Office say that the people in the low-lying areas need to be extremely cautious and take heed and all of that because of the possibility and their vulnerability to flooding.
Thank you, Peter. So in summary, the Water Commission has been impacted by Hurricane Melissa to the tune of $10.28 billion, and that includes its restoration and repair work that must be done, purchase and rental of generators, and of course fueling of generators, purchase of additional water trucks, as well as engagement of private suppliers, and running lift stations 24 hours a day in some cases where it is safe to do so, and of course purchase of water tanks. The primary takeaway we would ask that the media and the public take away from this discussion is the inextricable link of power and your water distribution. We cannot restore water where there is no power. We are working very closely with JPS, and we will start this evening, Delano, publishing the list of pumps by parish which are awaiting power so that persons are clear. We will also work with JPS so that by this weekend we'll be able to give projected times. Projected times may not be what you want to hear, but it will be our best estimate of when we are able to supply you. Thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Minister Samuda, for that update. And you heard you're going to be getting all of the information on the systems that are not up and that rely on JPS and some estimate of time. And I think that explanation on the aquifers and the rising water was absolutely excellent, because a lot of people have been asking, and I've seen it in content and Brighton Road off of Santa Cruz, and it is quite scary when you look at it and you're like, why is there all this water here? And so it's very good for you to explain to Jamaica that. And so I hope you'll stay with us so that if there are any more questions that we can get them answered. Up next, we have our minister that is responsible for roads, and after a Category 5 hurricane, you would expect that there would have been a lot of damage to our roads, a lot of blocked roads. But Minister Morgan and the NWA team have been working very hard to clear those, and so this morning he will be presenting to you on the work that has been done and work to be done, because it's not a perfect situation out there, and so there's still quite a bit of work to do. And so this morning we welcome Minister Robert Nestor Morgan to come and give his update on the roads.
Good morning, colleagues. Awaiting on the presentation to be brought up. Morning, members of the media, and also members of the support teams. Thank you very much. And thanks to those online. I just want to give a short presentation about some of the work that we've been doing, and an update as to where we are now, as well as a preliminary outline as to the cost of Melissa to our road and drainage infrastructure. So the National Works Agency, immediately after Hurricane Melissa and even before, began a this thing is not moving properly. Okay. So at the beginning, I want to outline the role of the National Works Agency, which is basically to provide access, support, safeguard vital assets, and monitor flood control systems. Before the hurricane, we would have expended about $400 million to prepare for it. But as many of you may realize, you cannot drain clean for a Category 5 hurricane. So we would have also pre-positioned equipment across several parishes, but some of that effort actually did not manifest itself in a positive outcome, particularly in Black River, where a lot of the equipment was essentially marooned when the storm surge cut off a section of the road where the equipment was. But in other areas, the equipment was able to be mobilized quickly. Immediately after the hurricane, we did our quick impact survey and found that 370 roads were essentially impacted, but we were able to clear most of them, about 85% of them, within 5 days. We prioritized routes that dealt with hospitals, airports, and would provide needed supplies to areas that were impacted. We also had a lot of coordination with ourselves and the ODPEM and focused on rapid clearing. Really want to give credit to the Jamaica Defense Force and also the citizens who have helped a lot in clearing some of the roads that we have that were impacted. Currently, last week we had about 61 roads that were blocked. Currently we have about 30, as you can see. The number increased from 370 the last time I presented to now it's 396 roads affected. And the issue with the disaster is that sometimes you clear a road and it becomes blocked again, as was the case in sections of St. James over the last 48 hours, where we did clear a lot of the roads in St. James, such as Adelphi, but because of heavy rains, those roads became blocked again and we had to reopen. We have 123 roads that are 2 lanes and 248 that are single lanes. And as time goes by, you will see the number of block roads being reduced. Importantly though, we can report that only 2 roads in Westmoreland, which is essentially a center of challenge, are blocked, though we have a lot of blocked roads in places like St. Elizabeth. And we will be publishing a list of all the roads that are blocked and cleared. I just want to give you an example of some of the work that the teams have been doing, both citizens and public sector teams. I want to also give a shout out to the forestry department, who have assembled a team of sawmen and are heavy in places like Trelawney, where we have some very large trees, some of them at least 7 to 8 in width, which normal sawmen were not able to fully deal with. So the sawmen have been an important part of our efforts, as well as local backhoe operators and citizens as well. And we want to really thank the citizens. What you see on your screen is an example of some of the challenges that we have faced in clearing some of the roads, especially in the hilly interior. This breakaway, when you measure it from the top all the way to the asphalt, is higher than the backhoe that is seeking to clear it. A part of the challenge with a lot of this type of landslide is that the soil is also unstable. So we have to be very cautious in how we deploy equipment and personnel into these areas, as we do not want to further cause damage or cause a loss to life. So this is just one example of some of the challenges that we have faced in trying to clear some of these landslides. We also have had to deal with a lot of bamboo, particularly in the Holland bamboo area. Bamboo is one of the more difficult type of vegetation to clear, especially when it is crushed, because it intertwines itself and it requires a lot of sawmen, a lot of cutlass men, and so on. I just want to make an announcement. Due to the curfew that has been imposed, I think we have now gotten an opportunity to do a better job in the Holland bamboo area. We did a lot of clearing in Holland bamboo, and we were able to create a corridor for people to move through, but there's still some bamboo sticking out. So we're not able to put heavy equipment there while a large portion of persons who are trying to traverse to bring aid to their families and aid convoys were going through. So now that we have a curfew, we will have an opportunity to put some heavy equipment in that area. I want to also point to you some of the types of damage that we have seen, not just in the areas of St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland, but places like Southern Trelawney. When you go there, this is the type of damage you're seeing, where sometimes 50 to 60% of the road is cut off. This is typical of places like Southern Trelawney, where the hydrology and the geology is different from Northern Trelawney, which is of a different soil type. This is going to require significant investment over a medium to long term in order to build retaining walls to ensure that people are able to traverse these corridors over time. We've also seen the destruction of fordings. This fording is actually in northern Clarendon. It takes you to a place called Trouthall Pass. Now, this fording is essential as it gives access to approximately 300 residents to cross the river. This fording has been destroyed. So we have had several fordings across the island which have been destroyed, so we will have to do repairs on that. We've also seen, due to scoring, roads have been, the asphalt has been washed off the top of the roads. It has exposed water mains, and that requires a collaboration between ourselves and the National Water Commission in order to ensure that we create the facility for them to restore the water, but also do some quick remedial work. As you see here, we are putting some aggregate on the road and clearing some of the overhead damage to ensure persons have the ability to traverse these areas. Some of the key preliminary assessments that we have done, our major highways and key bridges remain largely intact. Our pre-storm drain and gully cleaning reduced flooding in some urban areas, and we were able to rapidly open critical corridors with the coordination from local contractors and our local teams, as well as other entities such as ODPEM and the Jamaica Defence Force. But there are some weaknesses that we have identified. Secondary roads have been severely eroded or washed out. We need to start looking at, as a part of our building for resilience, adequate slope protection, because a lot of the landslides were caused because we did not have adequate slope protection in hilly interior. And we have to look at our drainage systems as these events, even though you cannot plan for a Category 5, over time we've realized that our drains are not able to accommodate the runoff that comes from certain types of weather events that are becoming more frequent. And we also have a challenge where power and communications infrastructure along roadways were impacted. So we're working with Jamaica Public Service Company to ensure that we can help them to remove some of these power lines and poles that have fallen. In terms of strategies for the future, we're going to have to upgrade our roads and bridges using climate resilient standards and expand drainage and implement slope stabilization projects, and also strengthen our public-private partnerships for rapid response. And we're also going to have to do more rapid real-time monitoring and GIS-based risk mapping of areas that we consider vulnerable. And we're going to also have to employ resilience planning in all our infrastructure projects. The government has, Cabinet has decided that preliminarily we will be spending $5 billion through the National Works Agency to, 1, reopen roads, including some drain cleaning, $1 billion for road repairs, and this is just emergency road repairs, and also $2 billion for repairs to gullies, particularly the Sandy Gully, the North and South Gully and their tributaries, as well as some minor culverts, gullies and fordings across the island. And we have received Cabinet permission to spend $5 billion on that. I want to advise, though, that while we are going to be spending $5 billion, the cost preliminarily that we have seen in terms of damage to our road infrastructure is about $35 billion. But we have not yet completed our assessments, so we expect that that figure will increase over time. And that is my update on the work that we've been doing, as well as the preliminary costing of the damage to our infrastructure. Thank you very much, Dr. Dana-Dixon.
Thank you very much, Minister Morgan. And I know the team has been working very hard. You see the work everywhere, including in very, very rural parts that I was in yesterday. I see the work of the NWA team. Up next, as we try to close out, I know that Minister Vaz, you had wanted to address a particular matter. We did have a comprehensive update from Minister Vaz, but I do know that you want to address a particular situation that's been making the rounds. So, Minister Vaz, whose birthday is it? Is it Minister Vaz's birthday? Oh! We'll soon sing for you.
Morning to everyone. A quick update, as I gave a comprehensive one 2 days ago, but just out of transparency and good communication. Recovery efforts continue. As we know, today's update will outline the latest restoration activities and continued work with our partners. Energy, as of this morning, 67% of JPS customers, representing 686,000 households and businesses, have had power restored across the island. 77% of major private and public hospitals have been restored, And the JPS, I understand, is having a detailed press conference at 2 p.m. today, which is why they're not here. So I will leave the better and more specific details to them. Happy to know that they are now having their own press conferences on a regular basis because the people want to know what's happening with the light restoration. Digicel has brought back 60% of its mobile network, while fixed business services remain at 89% and 75% respectively. Current focus is now on Hanover, where teams are working to improve performance, and in St. Anne's Bay, Runaway Bay and Discovery Bay, where crews are rebuilding and re-strengthening fixed network connections. 8 sites are scheduled for rebuilding within the next 2 weeks, and technicians are realigning the microwave antennas to restore traffic routing from the grill, which is expected to be completed within 2 to 3 days. Also, the Starlink backhauls installations remain ongoing, and plans are underway to redeploy a connection point in North Trelawney to strengthen reconnection efforts. However, the mobile site deployment in Waitabit Trelawney remains on hold pending landlord clearance. Flow reports continued improvement in both fixed and mobile services. Approximately 75% of fixed sites are now operational, and commercial power stabilizes in more areas. Since Wednesday, November 12, 67 additional network nodes were restored, bringing fixed customer connectivity to 53% island-wide. Restoration has been strengthened along key corridors, such as Port Antonio to Anota Bay, Mandeville to Santa Cruz, and Port Antonio to Morant Bay, while further work continues on the Ocho Rios Spanish Town, Falmouth, Montego Bay, and Mandeville Maypen routes to expand access and stability. On the mobile sites, 58% of sites are now back online, representing approximately 90% of re-hurricane mobile traffic. Service has been restored in several affected communities, including Darliston and Little London in Westmoreland, Bonnygate and Charlestown in St. Mary, Boston Bay in Portland, Kellett's, Crawfield, and New Bowen in Clarendon, and Prattville in Manchester. Airports. Both airports continue to remain fully operational, with Montego Bay getting back light yesterday or the day before. Sangster continues to have scheduled flights and relief flights, and therefore that is excellent news. As was indicated before, we are now seeing the seaside of relief coming in now, as the seaports are now open and container vessels have started to arrive as early as Sunday, and I understand one arrived in Montego Bay on yesterday. So that, along with the cargo relief flights that are coming into Norman Manley and Montego Bay and Ian Fleming, means that the relief efforts will continue, especially humanitarian. Let me take time out just to indicate that there was an unfortunate post yesterday by a musician indicating that there were some wrongdoings in relation to the cargo that came for relief. While I welcome all efforts and attempts for persons to help in small, medium, and large ways, fact of the matter is that we must have an accountable system. And I want to publicly state today, without fear of contradiction, that I did an overnight investigation, including cameras and including the custom broker who handled the shipment. And I want to make it very clear that the shipment left the airport intact as it came, fully wrapped, and everything that was there left the airport in the custody of the charitable organization. It went to a warehouse in Spanish Town, which the government has no involvement in whatsoever. So as far as what we did in terms of making sure that the goods that were meant for the people, the poor suffering people, were delivered. And I want to thank all of the airport staff that continue to work so tirelessly under the worst strain and pressure to make sure that we manage all of these cargo flights in a smooth and efficient manner. I am the first one to say that it's not perfect. because we are now overburdened with more flights than we normally expect. However, we are doing our best, and I'm going to ask for everybody to please just do what you are doing and do so in the best interest of the people of Jamaica, and do not cause mischief or nuisance, because I will be there to defend the government as long as it is on the seaside or the port side. Absolute rubbish was posted, and I say so without fear of contradiction. And anybody who wants, come to me and I will give you the evidence. We will investigate any case and every case, because we want transparency and accountability. What we don't want is mischief and nuisance, and that's what was posted last night. God bless Jamaica.
Thank you, Minister Vaz. That was some quick investigating, and I think there are some images on screen that are being shown as we get to the question part. So I just needed to give a couple quick updates on education. A lot of our schools are severely damaged. Over 600 of them are. Yesterday I was in Trelawney and St. James, and a lot of schools have suffered tremendous damage. Some schools just don't exist anymore. I went to one school where not one room can be used. So we're going to have to be very creative in trying to get school back. The principals are working really hard with cleanup. They've already started with members of the community. As I went around to schools yesterday, there were people from Kingston, from St. Catherine. I had football teams that were there that were working to help to clean the schools. And so the schools have started to clean up, especially in the west, but they need some more support. And so the Ministry of Education is very pleased to provide, through the cabinet, grants to all of our schools that were affected in the west with cleanup grants. Some have more cleanup to do than others. Many have already started, and so we're just supporting that activity. The grants will be from $300,000 to $1 million, depending on how much cleanup they're doing. And so those will start going out to the schools starting tomorrow. And so I thank the team at the ministry, especially our CFO, for making sure that those funds can get to the schools as quickly as possible. In addition to that, I just wanted to note the amount of donations. ODPEM, you owe us the donations from the account, but in terms of the website and from credit card transactions, we are, as at 2:03 a.m. today, we had a total of $1.13 million deposited or contributed, and also 55.850 million Jamaican dollars in donations there. On the website, the Support Jamaica website, there's also a new feature that was launched today, and that is a new streamlined relief shipment portal on Support Jamaica. And this will enable anyone sending humanitarian aid to Jamaica through ODPEM to complete all the required forms in one place. You have to do an ODPEM form, you have to do a civil aviation form. We're putting them all together. So whether you're consigning goods by air or sea, the portal captures donor details, invoice and packing lists, etc. that's needed by ODPEM. And customs will also have their documentation there that will be given in that one place, and then also the information needed by the Civil Aviation Authority or the Maritime Authority of Jamaica will be all there. So we're consolidating, we're making the process a lot more efficient so that you don't have to go to multiple places and fill out multiple forms. So that's a new feature on the site, and we'll be working with donors who want to send things to Jamaica to use that portal to make their lives so much more easy. Back to schools, I should have noted 665 schools are opened as at yesterday. So we're getting the numbers up. In the West, we have a lot of challenges in the West, but we are working through those, and we're hoping that within the next 2 weeks, at least all students who have external exams, whether it's CSEC, CAPE, or PEP, will be back. So we're prioritizing those students in the West. It will take some time to rebuild schools, but we do need to get those particular students out as quickly as we can while we look at our temporary structures. I think those are all the updates. I will go to the questions for those who are here first, and then I have some that were sent in online. All right, microphone here. Who's treating with microphones today? Is there no one dealing with microphones? All right, please stand, say your name and your entity.
Good morning, Adira Truth from Roots 96.1 FM.
Nice to have Roots here.
Thank you. My question is to Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark, given the repeated aquifer-driven flooding in areas such as Content, is the Water Resources Authority recommending any technical limits or guidelines on development in those zones?
All right, good morning, and thanks for your question. The fact is that whenever an application for development is made, I think it's made to the municipal corporations, it's made to the parish councils, basically. And then, because the parish councils inherently will not have all the expertise in-house, they then pass those applications around. So they'll go to the fire brigade, they'll go to the health, they'll come to water resources, they'll go to NEPA, wherever. And a part of the WRA's response is to analyze the application, analyze the area that it is, and then make a recommendation. So the recommendations do come from, there are recommendations that come from the Water Resources Authority, whether an area is flood prone, so care needs to be taken, whether the area is, for instance, a fault, because we do monitor this sort of thing, if there's a fault or a fault line in the area, whatever it is. So the recommendations are made, and then now it is then now the final decisions are made otherwise elsewhere, and that is what happens. But essentially speaking, there is a very robust development process that is here in Jamaica.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next question.
Good morning, everyone. Katie Paul from NCUFM News. I have 3 questions, one for...
3, okay. Remember, we have to be quick, but
yes.
Go ahead, give us the 3.
So, for Minister Samuda, how has the hurricane affected the initiative to implement renewable energy to power water systems, and how soon can NWC...
Can you repeat that question, the first one?
Yes, so how has the hurricane affected the initiative to implement renewable energy to power water systems, and how soon can NWC get back to that? For ODPEM, in light of the climate change and repeated storms, are there any plans to update Jamaica's National Disaster Preparedness Framework or introduce new technology for early warning and coordination? And for Minister Dixon, you talked about the schools that were completely destroyed. Are there any plans to revise school construction standards to make them more climate resilient?
Yes. All right, thank you, Minister.
The NWC is the single largest consumer of energy in Jamaica as an entity, meaning we are also the single largest customer of the JPS. It means JPS's stability is also tied to NWC's stability and consumption, meaning if NWC was to wholesale remove itself from JPS, bills would actually rise to the remaining customers on the grid. However, as a part of Jamaica's NDCs being its nationally determined contributions towards its climate change mitigation efforts, one of the areas that we will reduce our energy consumption by bringing on renewables is indeed NWC. And this is being carefully selected for areas where it's appropriate so to do, meaning sufficient land space either for wind or solar, and in some cases changing our fuel source and generating source, being using LNG for areas such as Gutters and Pepper, which has the deepest well second deepest well in Jamaica, and one of the most expensive pumping units. So yes, we are bringing on renewable energy. We would have brought on renewable energy with the commissioning of a new solar park at our Red Hills pumping station, which serves that general area, I think going up to about Swain Spring, right, Delano, somewhere in that general area. So we're already pumping using renewables. We expect to commence construction on our floating solar system at the Mona Reservoir, which will bring some 45 megawatts onto the grid sometime early next year. So we are well advanced in bringing on renewable sources, but we're also well advanced at engaging other suppliers for LNG-related solutions, which also bring down the emissions because it's a cleaner source of fuel, and we're working with JPS for other microgrid type solutions. So it's a full suite of energy projects, which also include the purchase of over $1 billion of new efficient pumps, as many of the pumps that we use are 70 and 80 years old, so are particularly inefficient in terms of their power consumption. Thank you. To the climate change question before Commander Gale comes. Jamaica has completed its national adaptation plan and intends to file it to the UNFCCC very soon as per the programs. Now that national adaptation plan determines how strong our resilience is, how our infrastructure is to the risks that we face. We're also now using what's called the JSTRAT. It is the Jamaica Systemic Risk Assessment Tool, which is housed at PIOG and runs on a supercomputer. So Jamaica was the first nation on earth to evaluate the climate risk to all of its infrastructure. And that is both private and public infrastructure. So we've taken all the thousands of data points of JPS, the thousands of data points from the airports, from the NWC, from your banks, etc., from our coastline to determine what the climatic risk is. And that feeds into the disaster risk management plan.
All right, as as Commander comes up, there are some other questions for you, Commander. So okay. Just noting, I will just give them to you after.
All right, happy. So as with any event of this nature, a significant after-action review will be committed, and through that we'll then determine what parts of our processes need to change, and then what technology we need to be brought on board. So we can expect that robust after-action review process to be engaged shortly after we've been able to settle a little bit. Thank you.
All right. While you are here, let me find those questions that are specifically for you. Hold on, let me get back to them. Just need to find them. There was a long list of them. Here we are. Some residents across communities in Northwest St. Elizabeth have complained that no relief supplies have been delivered in these areas by authorities. That's from the Gleaner. The other one is, are there areas that are still marooned? And then the next one is, as far as you're aware, are there uncollected bodies in any community impacted by the hurricane? So Northwest St. Elizabeth, marooned and unclaimed bodies.
Right, so I'm not tracking that we have not been able to reach all communities, but I will relook at the distribution plan to ensure that we get very, very granular. As we move into this phase of the relief efforts, I would have mentioned in the earlier discourse today the number of hubs, warehouses, the 22 locations being manned by the JDF, and I'll also add that there are further plans to get farther into the communities as they open up. So whilst we might be dropping in larger population areas, I could understand that maybe some smaller subsets. So we look at that. At the moment, there are no maroon communities as described on Tuesday, i.e. communities where there is no vehicular access. I'm tracking at the moment that we have access to all communities, and I'm not tracking any reports of any uncollected bodies at the moment.
All right, thank you. I think those were all the questions I have for you. I had a question on schools and the construction of schools, which I should answer. It's a very good question. Many of our schools that I've seen that sustained damage, what made me quite unhappy was the fact that last year after Hurricane Beryl, some of those very schools were repaired. And 1 year later, we're back at repairing them. So that raises questions for me about the quality of work that would have been done. And it also raises other questions about standards and the standards of our schools. And so I've asked some of our multilateral partners to work with us to look at the building standards around schools, because it's not acceptable that you have a hurricane 1 year and you fix it and then the next year you're back at it again. And so we will be doing that work. We have to build schools that are climate resilient. There are many schools that have done a tremendous job. They're trying to help themselves, and they'll add a classroom here and a classroom there, or they'll do some work on a new hall or something like that. And in many instances, as I've gone around, a lot of those have been destroyed. And so as we move forward, we're going to have to ensure that even where schools are doing their own fundraising and building structures, that they are built within particular standards. So your question is quite apt, because we have to get climate resilient schools in our country. All right. RGR.
Good morning, Camille Williams from Radio Jamaica / Television Jamaica. The question I have is for Commander Gale. Commander, you said that there are 146,000 structures that sustained major or severe damage in the hurricane. The question I have is how many are houses and how many of those are in the West? All right? And then the other question I have, how many families are now homeless and how many people do you have down as being homeless now?
All right, Commander.
So I can repeat.
So I did mention about 146,000 structures having assessed to have major to severe damage. We're still going through the process now of delineating which were businesses, which were homes. As you can appreciate, this was done through geospatial data. So that has to be parsed and verified on the ground. But I'll ask the team, they have started looking into it. I'm tracking, however, just about 90,000 households affected and 360 persons impacted in terms of the persons.
360 or 360K?
360K, sorry. I did make that mistake on Tuesday as well.
And then also the numbers of buildings. I think you gave the wrong number.
Yeah, I did say 130
yes.
on Tuesday, so I meant 130,000.
Thank you.
So indicated here the 146,000. In terms of numbers of homeless, that is still being assessed. And I believe Minister has some fresh information. Okay,
we'll get that number for you.
But as I mentioned before, in shelters, just about 1,400 persons in shelters as of today.
All right. I have one here for you too, since you are here. Between you or Minister Mackenzie, you could answer this, and this is from the Gleaner. There's a question about number of disabled persons in shelters as well as infants. Do we have those numbers? And if you don't, can you provide that to the Gleaner, please? Sure, come, Minister.
Good morning, everybody. I don't want to give the information which is incomplete. We have just completed the assessment. I just received the information, and I want to be sure before we put this information out. So this information will be provided as soon as we have gone through and have verified all the information that is presented here. So we have it, we have an idea what the numbers are, but as I said before, we want to be precise when we give the numbers.
All right, so all those questions that were asked that you didn't get your precise numbers, we will work with Minister Mackenzie and ODPEM and send them to you directly. All right, I think those are all the questions we have today, and we are at the end of today's update. And just to note again, there are a lot of Jamaicans that are hurting. There are a lot of Jamaicans that don't have a place over their head. Yesterday, as I saw a little boy, it was a little girl, she came over to me and she was talking to me and she just hugged me. And she said, "My house mashed down." And she said it several times to me. And she was staying with family in Trelawney because she's from St. James. And there are a lot of children, a lot of adults who are going through a lot of trauma right now. And you feel it heavy in Jamaica. But we just have to do what we can to support everyone. Things aren't perfect. They're definitely not perfect. There are people in St. James with mud all over their house. There are other places that are worried about the rain. I was at Cornwall College yesterday, and one of the young teenagers, very tall and handsome, said the night before, when they heard the rain and the wind, they thought the hurricane had come again. There is a lot of trauma out there, and we just do what we can as government, as people, to support everybody who is hurting. And I thank all of the volunteers that have been going all over Jamaica and supporting these communities that need their support.